The Israeli military says it is calling up about 60,000 reservists ahead of a planned ground offensive to capture and occupy all of Gaza City.
Generate by AI.
A military official said the reservists would report for duty in September and that most of the troops mobilized for the offensive would be active duty personnel. They added that troops were already operating in the Zaytun and Jabalia areas as part of the preparations for the plan, which Defense Minister Israel Katz approved on Tuesday and will be put to the Security Cabinet later this week. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in Gaza City are expected to be ordered to evacuate and head to shelters in southern Gaza. Many of Israel's allies have condemned the plan, with French President Emmanuel Macron warning on Wednesday that it can only lead to disaster for both peoples and risks plunging the entire region into a cycle of permanent war. The International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, meanwhile said further displacement and an intensification of hostilities risk worsening an already catastrophic situation for Gaza's 2.1 million population. Israel's government announced its intention to conquer the entire Gaza Strip after indirect talks with Hamas on a ceasefire and hostage release deal broke down last month. Mediators Qatar and Egypt are trying to secure an agreement before the offensive begins and have presented a new proposal for a 60-day truce and the release of around half of the 50 hostages held in Gaza, which Hamas said it had accepted on Monday. Israel has not yet submitted a formal response, but Israeli officials insisted on Tuesday that they would no longer accept a partial deal and demanded a comprehensive one that would see all the hostages released. Only 20 of them are believed to be still alive. Israel demands release of all Gaza hostages, casting doubt on ceasefire proposal. Hamas source says group agrees to latest Gaza ceasefire proposal. Bowen. Netanyahu is presiding over a divided Israel. The fault lines are now chasms. The Israel Defense Forces, IDF, said in a statement that orders calling up 60,000 reservists were issued on Wednesday as part of the preparations for the next phase of Operation Gideon's Chariots, the ground offensive, that it launched in May and has seen it take control of at least 75% of Gaza. In addition, 20,000 reservists who had already been called up would receive a notice extending their current orders, it added. The military official said senior commanders had approved the plan for what they described as a gradual, precise and targeted operation in and around Gaza City, with troops entering some areas where they had not gone previously. 5 divisions were expected to take part in the offensive, the official added. The Haaretz newspaper quoted Defense Minister Katz as saying on Tuesday, "Once the operation is completed, Gaza will change its face and will no longer look as it did in the past." He also reportedly approved a plan to Akamo. The IDF also announced on Wednesday that the Givati Brigade had resumed operations in the northern town of Jabalia and on the outskirts of Gaza City.
Generate by AI.
Where it said they were dismantling military infrastructures above and below ground, eliminating terrorists, and consolidating operational control. It said civilians were being told to move south for their safety to mitigate the risk of harm. A spokesman for Gaza's Hamas-run civil defense agency, Mahmoud Basal, told AFP news agency on Tuesday that the situation was very dangerous and unbearable in the city's Zaytun and Sabra neighborhoods, where he said, shelling continues intermittently. The agency reported that Israeli strikes and fire had killed 21 people across the territory on Wednesday. They included 3 children and their parents whose home in the Badr area of Shati refugee camp, west of Gaza City, was bombed, it said. The IDF, meanwhile, said 15 Palestinian fighters had attempted to infiltrate one of its positions in the southern city of Khan Yunis on Wednesday. The IDF said 1 Israeli soldier was severely injured, and 10 of the attackers were killed during the incident. Hamas's military wing said it had attacked the position and that at least 1 fighter carried out a suicide bombing. The UN and non-governmental organizations operating in Gaza have warned of the humanitarian impact of a new Israeli offensive. The Israeli plan to intensify military operations in Gaza City will have a horrific humanitarian impact on people already exhausted, malnourished, bereaved, displaced, and deprived of basics needed for survival, and they said in a joint statement on Monday. Forcing hundreds of thousands to move south is a recipe for further disaster and could amount to forcible transfer, they added. Forcible transfer of a civilian population is a serious violation of international humanitarian law. They also said the areas of the south where displaced residents were expected to move were overcrowded and ill-equipped to sustain human survival at scale. The ICRC said on Wednesday that a further intensification of military operations threatened an irreversible humanitarian crisis and that the lives of the hostages might also be put at risk. Some of them are believed to be held in Gaza City. The UN Human Rights Office said hundreds of families had already been forced to flee eastern and southern Gaza City over the past few days.
Generate by AI.
While others reportedly remain trapped, completely cut off from food, water, and medical supplies. It also noted that Israel was telling displaced Palestinians to move to al-Mawasi, even though it continued to carry out deadly strikes there. The World Food Program, meanwhile, warned that malnutrition in Gaza had crossed emergency levels and was rising fast, with more children and mothers showing severe symptoms. The UN agency said it was scaling up treatment, but that needs outpace the response. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry also reported that another 3 people had died as a result of malnutrition over the previous 24 hours, raising the total number of such deaths since the start of the war to 269, including 112 children. The UN has said it needs unimpeded humanitarian access across all of Gaza, with aid entering at scale through all possible crossings. It has said incoming supplies remain far from sufficient because of Israeli restrictions. Israeli military body Kogat, which controls the entry of aid into Gaza, said in response to the WFP's statement that hundreds of lorry loads of supplies were being delivered daily and that food prices were plummeting. It has also previously accused the health ministry of misrepresenting deaths from pre-existing medical conditions as malnutrition. The Israeli military launched a campaign in Gaza in response to the Hamas-led attack on southern Israel on 7 October 2023. In which about 1,200 people were killed and 251 others were taken hostage. At least 62,122 people have been killed in Gaza since then, according to the territory's health ministry. The ministry's figures are quoted by the UN and others as the most reliable source of statistics available on casualties. Top news. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss important updates.